Part 73. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 721. After finishing the hot pot, Su Ming looked at the time and saw that it was only around 7 o'clock in the evening. For Xiangjiang, a city that never sleeps, the nightlife has just begun. Kui Baijia suggested going to Lan Kuai-Fong Bar Street for a drink. The so-called Lan Kuai-Fong Bar Street is a U-shaped area, consisting of several short streets. Each street is dotted with various bars, and every night is filled with incense. Che La Niu is the best place to go to in Yep. Lin Mu was indispensable. After coming to Hong Kong, Lin Mu spent almost every day in Lan Kuai-Fong during the first week and soon got tired of it. This guy is really not just lustful, he likes to show off in front of women, a typical performing personality. After going to Lan Kuai-Fong a few times, I found that everyone there was acting, and it was all about routines, so I quickly lost interest. Since it was acting, I might as well stay on the set. Ho Long Tao and his wife came to Xiangjiang for the first time. Among the people present, these two were the most ordinary and did not speak. However, from the eyes of them, especially Song Lulu, it was obvious that they wanted to broaden their horizons. "You go ahead, I still have something to do," Su Ming said to Lin Mu. "You take good care of them and charge the expenses to the company's account." Lin Mu nodded. "Don't worry." Kui Baiga said, "Su Sheng, where are you going? Do you need me to drive you?" Su Ming has a mainland driver's license, but mainland traffic regulations require driving on the left. The steering wheels of cars in Xiangjiang are all on the right. Like the mainstream model in the world, they drive on the right. Su Ming's mainland driver's license is useless here. "No need, I'll just call a taxi," Su Ming said. Despite the dense crowds and traffic congestion in Xiangjiang, hailing a taxi is quite convenient. It is very different from the situation in Yangchuan City where you can't wait for a taxi for half a day. When you wave your hand, a taxi is driving very fast. It was like racing on TV. With a squeak, a beautiful car pulled over and stopped in front of you. "You guys have fun." Su Ming got into the car, greeted a few people outside the car, and then gave the driver an address. The car windows were open, so out of politeness Kui Baiga and others stood by to see Su Ming get into the car. Kui Baiga's heart skipped a beat when he heard the address of a certain street in Kowloon Tong that Su Ming told the driver. As expected, everyone in the industry is familiar with that address. Kowloon Tong is only one street away from the original Kowloon walled city. There is a villa where a giant family that plays an important role in Hong Kong's film and television entertainment industry lives. After watching the taxi's tail lights disappearing into the night traffic, Kui Baijia suddenly felt that the next trip was a bit boring. Going to a place like Lan Kuai-Fong was simply a waste of life. He should have made preparations earlier. If he could, this Mr. Su took him to the Kowloon Tong Villa, even if he only had a chance encounter with the big shot in the Hong Kong film and television industry. Thinking too much, Kui Baijia shook his head, feeling funny in his heart. He was still too anxious to get the position. Not to mention the chairman of Waxia Star, even with this Su Sheng, he only had a one-time relationship with him. Fortunately, the two parties have formed a good relationship, and there may not be opportunities to take things further in the future. "Let's go to Lan Kuai-Fong," Song Lulu said to Lin Mu in high spirits. "Lan Kuai-Fong is often seen in mainland TV and movies, but I haven't been there yet." She looked impatient. "Okay, everyone get in the car." "Lin Sheng, I'm familiar with the road, let me drive." Kui Baijia showed a very warm smile, greeted a few other people to get in the car, started the business car, and asked casually to sit in the passenger seat. "Lin Mu, Lin Sheng, how many days will Su Sheng stay in Xiangjiang? Do you need a tour guide?" "I just don't have anything to do these days, so I have time." Lin Mu laughed. "Wow, pretty girl, it's too obvious for you to be so disrespectful. After all, you are also a new generation goddess in Xiangjiang, so be more reserved. Lin Mu and Kui Baijia were both insiders, and they were quite able to talk to each other. Now that the words had been spoken, Kui Baijia didn't pretend to be stupid, and gave him a flirtatious look, and then said resentfully, "This is such a good opportunity. If I'm not sure, if I continue to be reserved, I'll be almost 30, and a woman's youth is wasted in such aimless waste. We are all friends, don't blame me for not reminding you. The fiancée of my classmate is also a goddess-level figure, and her relationship is very good. You have to be measured," Lin Mu said while pointing in the direction of the racecourse in the distance. He has a horse signed up to participate in the Longines Cup. Recently, he may often appear at the racecourse, betting on horses and watching horses. Su Sheng is a member of the jockey club. Isn't he a mainlander? Kui Baiga was slightly startled. Equestrian sports are relatively backward in the mainland. There are only a handful of famous equestrians in the mainland, and the same goes for famous horses. The Chinese people participating in the Longines Cup, they are either well-known athletes or people from Xiangjiang, and most of these horse owners have a common identity, members of the Xiangjiang Jockey Club. This situation is complicated. Lin Mu pretended to be mysterious and said, he is from the mainland and is not a member of the jockey club, but his identity is enough. What's your identity? Kui Baiga asked curiously. A rich person's identity, strength, and background. After Lin Mu finished speaking, he laughed first. This sentence was mostly meant to tease Kui Baijia. Unexpectedly, after hearing this, Kui Baijia was just cooperative. He smiled, and then said thoughtfully, well, you are right, the so-called titles are all false. As long as you have strength, nothing else matters. Forest. The two were chatting in the front row. The speaker was unintentional, but the listener was interested. Song Lulu looked at the scenery along the way through the car window, but her ears were always focused on the conversation between Lin Mu and the others, especially Kui Baijia's sigh, women's youth is wasted in such aimless idleness, which hit her heart hard like a big hammer. She couldn't help turning her head to look at Ho Longtao beside her. Ho Longtao is a typical otaku, who prefers to stay quietly in the small cinema. After accompanying Song Lulu for a whole day, Ho Longtao was already exhausted. In order to have the energy to accompany Song Lulu to the bar later, he leaned against the back seat and closed his eyes to rest as soon as he got in the car, and soon fell asleep. Looking at Ho Longtao, who was snoring slightly and looked unremarkable, and comparing what she saw and heard today, Song Lulu couldn't help but sigh. Ho Longtao's roommates include Su Ming, who is the best, and Wang Hao and Yang Tao are incomparable. One is the second generation of an official, and the other is the second generation of a rich man. Even Lin Mu, who is sitting in the front row, has become a star. Only Ho Longtao is guarding that dying private cinema, not striving for progress. Yes, he is not striving for progress. Women's youth. Song Lulu muttered to herself. Dividing line. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 722. Su Ming and Lin Mu temporarily parted ways and went to Long Wu's house. On the one hand, he was thanking him for his help today. Although it was not a big deal, he had not been the eldest brother for many years. For his own business, he intervened in the disputes again. Su Ming could not just let it go without mentioning it. On the other hand, before coming to Hong Kong this time, Long Wu specially invited him to his home. Sitting is of course not just sitting, they have common business intersections. The one who opened the door was a short but strong young man with firm facial lines and a 50% resemblance to Long Wu. It was Xiangzhou, who played Lei Zhenzi. Xiangzhou had met Su Ming several times. He was a few years older than Su Ming, but because Long Wu and Su Ming were equals, he called Su Ming uncle. The first time on the set, this guy called Su Ming uncle in front of a large group of people, which shocked the audience. Who was this young man? He actually made the prince lower his status. Could he be a hidden gangster? Su Ming was also embarrassed. I didn't have plastic surgery. I'm not even 25 this year. Is it appropriate for you to call me that in front of a group of pretty girls? Su Ming said at the time that we were just two people and it was fine to be friends as equals, but Xiangzhou insisted that seniority was the rule and it couldn't be messed up. He refused to change his words no matter what. The first time was strange, the second time was familiar. After a few times, Su Ming got used to it. When he saw him, he smiled and called him young man without waiting for Xiangzhou to speak. Young man, why are you so stern? Su Ming changed his shoes and patted Xiangzhou's shoulder with a smile. Xiangzhou was dejected and looked listless like a defeated rooster. His face was dark, and this made him look even more gloomy. This guy had well-developed muscles, but Su Ming's hand was slightly painful. Uncle, don't laugh at me. Xiangzhou scratched his head. The movie flopped, and I was scolded badly. Don't take those things on the internet too seriously. Su Ming waved his hand. The internet is like this. If you take it seriously, you might as well burn charcoal and commit suicide. The more afraid you are, the more fierce people will scold you. If you act like you don't care, people will stop scolding you after a long time. Don't worry, there are too many strange news these days, and people will soon forget about you. Uncle, are you trying to persuade me or insult me? I'm an actor. If everyone forgets me, won't I be finished? Xiangzhou said depressedly. While talking, they had already reached the study on the second floor. Longwu was wearing a straight suit and a very serious face, sitting in front of a laptop. 10th brother, do you have to be so serious? You wear formal clothes in your own home. And you and your son don't welcome me. You both have stern faces when you enter the door. Su Ming smiled at Longwu speechlessly and said half-jokingly. Longwu shook his head stiffly, like a robot, and said helplessly, we just held a few video conferences. You know, I have never been good at these high-tech things. I am more nervous to hold a meeting in front of a camera than to hold a meeting in front of dozens of media. Dad, you are not good at high-tech. Xiangzhou muttered, what kind of high-tech is video conferencing? He poured 3 glasses of red wine behind the small bar in the study, handed one to Su Ming, and said, my dad has a psychological barrier, sticking to the old ways and unwilling to accept new things. What era is this? Even the club has started to use video connection for meetings, and he still thinks this is high-tech. Su Ming shouldn't have asked more about Longwu's meeting, but since he talked about the club, Su Ming said lightly, Brother Shi, is there a beginning and an end to what happened today? It's a bit strange. The club held a meeting and used the internet. Aren't they afraid of being monitored? That's not the case. We stopped doing clubs a long time ago, but a group of people have to eat, so we should all do regular things. Even valet parking and bartending are side businesses that don't make money. Besides, it's not appropriate to call it a club. Just now was a regular meeting. The heads of various places reported on this year's upgrade and transformation work. Su Ming. You don't have to worry about Cheng. Their boss Ale has long wanted to stop doing side business. He even called me in the evening and asked me to say sorry to you. Let's get rich together in harmony, Longwu said. Get rich together, Su Ming was slightly stunned. This sentence seemed to have other meanings. Longwu no longer does side business, and he doesn't do it himself. How can he get rich together with the so-called Cheng boss? I'm going to make a new movie. Ale wants to invest some money. We used to be in the same business. We used to drink tea and play cards together. Since he wants to change and take the right path, I will support him. Longwu smiled at Su Ming. This time, we are going to play big. We lost a lot last time with Legend of the Gods. I can't raise too much money at the moment. Are you interested in joining? Xiangzhou rolled his eyes. Another movie, Su Ming thought for a while and asked, 10th brother, I won't beat around the bush. Bringing that jank boss with you, or you trying to launder money through making movies? There are many cases in Hong Kong history where illegal income was laundered through making movies. Although it is difficult to trace it afterwards, Su Ming does not want to have anything to do with illegal transactions. Money laundering. Long Wu was stunned, then laughed. You think too much. Do you think this is the 1980s? The money earned from illegal activities nowadays does not need to be laundered at all. That little money is not even on the same level as the investment income of a movie, so everyone does legitimate business. Don't be afraid of you laughing at me. When the Big Four were at their most prosperous, all the protection fees in a year were only tens of millions, and they had to pay for the medical expenses and bail of their brothers and sisters, so there was not much to earn. Now, if you open a nightclub casually, you can earn hundreds of millions a year, and if a movie box office is decent, you can also earn tens of millions or hundreds of millions. The world is colorful and full of gold. Who would take the risk of illegal activities? After hearing what Long Wu said, Su Ming felt relieved. Thinking about it, this is not false at all. In the past, the economy was not developed, and there were not many ways to make money. The criminals in the movies would risk being beheaded for tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Times have changed. With a little background, you can open a shop, such as a medium-sized bar in a downtown area like Lan Kwai Fong. It is absolutely easy to make 100 million a year. In total, you only make more than 300,000 a night. If you meet a really rich person, the wine sold in a booth can reach this number. Who would go to the side business if they have the ability? Thinking of this, Su Ming realized that his thinking really couldn't keep up with the times. He smiled and got to the point, saying, "What is the budget, brother Shi? Tell me." The available funds he has are not too little, more than 100 million, but even Long Wu thinks it is a big investment, which is definitely in the hundreds of millions. Close to 100 million budget. Long Wu took a sip of wine, put down the wine glass, and without waiting for Su Ming to ask, he immediately added two words, US dollars. Su Ming was sweating profusely. Big brother, can you stop breathing heavily when you speak? With a budget of nearly 100 million US dollars and nearly 600 million Chinese yuan, it is no wonder that even Long Wu feels tight on investment. Even in the entire history of Chinese movies, this is considered a big deal, and even in a place like Hollywood, it is an absolute blockbuster level. What are you doing, playing so big? But it is still a bit strange. With the strength of Waxia Star, it should be able to take out this money, right? The more investment, the more dividends according to the proportion. Long Wu and I have a good relationship. We can make money together, but there is no need to give me part of the money he can make for nothing. This time I am not going to use the name of Waxia Star, but to be an independent producer and use my own name. Long Wu said, I can probably take out 200 million myself, and Ale can take out 80 million, leaving a gap of more than 200 million. Su Ming quickly calculated in his mind that he definitely couldn't take out more than 200 million, but 100 million was not a big problem. It is said that making movies is very profitable. In the real industry, it is even more difficult to make tens of millions a year. Last time, I spent several months to shoot a successful movie Zootopia, and I still have more than 100 million left. But now we can't talk about investment. Let's get the situation clear first. Why not produce it under the name of Waxiaxing? It's because of this loser. He will be one of the protagonists in this movie. Long Wu pointed to Zhou with a bit of doting. I promise that as long as he makes an effort to show me, I will give him 3 chances. The Legend of the Gods is the first time. Everyone said it was a flop, but I said it didn't matter. As a father, I have to do what I say no matter what. Su Ming understood that the first Legend of the Gods flopped, which led to the lack of confidence of many shareholders of Waxiaxing in big productions. What's more, this time, Xiang Zhou will be the protagonist. If he rashly took out 500 million or 600 million, the board of directors of Waxiaxing would definitely not pass it, so Longwu could only raise funds for filming in his own name. Looking at Xiangzhou, Su Ming's mouth twitched twice. "Uncle, don't worry. I'm just one of the protagonists this time." Xiangzhou probably saw Su Ming's worry and said speechlessly, "This play is epic. There is no single protagonist. Many storylines intersect together. I am just one of the more important characters. Strictly speaking, I am a supporting role in this one." Su Ming was overwhelmed when he heard the word epic. Isn't Investiture of the Gods an epic? "10th brother, you've been talking mysteriously for a long time, what kind of play is it?" Su Ming couldn't help but be curious. Could it be Journey to the West? In China, Journey to the West is definitely an epic, a dazzling big IP. Or is it Water Margin? Romance of the Three Kingdoms? The latter is definitely epic, but these days, war movies are not very popular. It can't be Dream of Red Mansions, right? Glancing at Xiangzhou, if he plays Jiao Beiyu, he won't pay a penny. Longwu's stern face actually revealed a rare smug look, but he was in no hurry to speak. He took out a cigar, lit it, took a slow puff, and placed the cigar steadily on the edge of the bronze ashtray, whetting Su Ming's appetite. Finally, he said leisurely, "It's not an Eastern epic, but a Western epic. Have you played World of Warcraft?" Su Ming almost vomited blood. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 723. When Su Ming heard Longwu talking about World of Warcraft, his first reaction was not to connect it with the movie at all. He nodded subconsciously, "I have played it. Brother Shi, I didn't expect you to play games at your age. I play a warlock." "What profession do you play?" "Ah," Longwu looked at Su Ming blankly. Xiangzhou said, "My dad doesn't play it. He can only steal vegetables. He can't play so many skills in World of Warcraft. I play a defensive warrior. I play the Dalkin server in District 10. "Uncle, which district and server are you from? What's the equipment level? Horde or Alliance? Let's team up to play 2v2 and brush the honor level next time." "I play the Horde in their Amore in District 5," Su Ming said. "Oh, that won't work. I'm from the Alliance. We're not on the same side, so we can't team up." Xiangzhou was a little disappointed, and then said, "Why don't you switch sides, uncle? There are many friends in my guild from the entertainment industry. You know Daniel Wu, he also plays a warlock." Longwu had a serious expression on his face, with his eyes wide open, just like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, sitting on the side and looking at the two of them innocently. "Oh, I'm off topic. This is a game, not a movie." Su Ming realized that he had made a huge mistake. His voice changed slightly, and he looked at Longwu in surprise. "Brother Shi, you mean, the movie you are shooting this time is World of Warcraft?" Longwu smiled and nodded, "That's right. I heard you two talking so happily, so I know that there are many players of this game, and the fan base is large enough. Of course, this is a game that has been popular all over the world for 10 years. Not only does it have a huge fan base in China, but it also has a large number of fans in any country with the internet all over the world. Oh, except for North Korea, I guess their internet speed is not good." Su Ming nodded. "However, the copyright of the IP should be in the hands of Blizzard, right? Brother Shi, did you negotiate it?" Blizzard Entertainment is a genuine American company that has launched many classic series, such as Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo series. The company is located in the United States, and its leaders and employees are all Americans. It has almost no intersection with the Hong Kong film market. Even if Blizzard wants to sell the rights to the adapted film, it is more likely to choose Hollywood and European film companies, such as Soul Liance, which produced the Lord of the Rings series, or simply choose well-known companies such as Disney Pictures and Legendary Pictures, which have rich experience in fantasy films. Whether in terms of overall strength or company reputation, Longwu and even Huaxiaxing are far from being opponents of the above companies. Longwu's power has a huge influence in the Hong Kong film and television industry. It can be said that there is no script or copyright that he cannot get. But in the United States, it is impossible to have such great power. Speaking of this, even Longwu, who is so introverted, couldn't help showing a proud expression. My family has a deep relationship with a capable person in Blizzard. It just so happens that Blizzard is interested in investing in the filming of World of Warcraft movies and looking for partners. What are the conditions offered by the other party? Su Ming frowned slightly and asked curiously. The East is a society of favors, and the West is a society of contracts. No matter how good the relationship is, no matter how great the favor is, it is impossible to give the film copyright to Longwu for nothing. Not only is it impossible to give it away for free, but the conditions proposed by an Eastern film company that can hand over this purely Western fantasy-style work to a Western film company may be more stringent than those proposed to Western film companies. Of course, Longwu's relationship played a decisive role. Without this relationship, the other party probably would not consider cooperating with Longwu at all. The cooperation in filming proposed by Blizzard Entertainment mainly means, the other party provides the copyright of the film IP, participates in the guidance and supervision of the film, does not interfere with the filming process and the selection of people, and finally extracts 20% from the share that the producer deserves as copyright fees. Assuming that the box office is 100 million, the producer can probably get 40 to 50 million, and Blizzard has almost no expenses, and only takes 8 to 10 million from it. The above are the conditions for Western companies, which are industry practices and are not excessive. In addition, as Su Ming expected, the other party has an additional condition for Eastern film companies: no matter how much the final box office of the film is, the producer must prepay a minimum deposit of $30 million. Regardless of whether the final dividend is $30 million, Blizzard will not refund the $30 million. In other words, Blizzard's final share is $30 million, plus about 8% of the total box office. The $100 million investment mentioned by Longwu includes the $30 million in advance. That's why he is trying to attract investment everywhere. The cash he can use now is not enough to cover the $30 million in advance, unless he is willing to sell Huaxiaxing's shares. Huaxiaxing's equity is the foundation of his livelihood. Of course, he can't cash it out unless it is absolutely necessary. How about it, are you interested in joining? Longwu asked with a smile. Su Ming considered holding the wine and shaking the glass gently, but did not answer, as if he was considering it. This investment is definitely not 10 or 20 million yuan. Even the deposit paid in advance to the other party has reached nearly 200 million Chinese yuan. If you want to participate in this game, you have to start with at least 50 million, and 100 million is not too much. Longwu's budget is a total cost of $100 million, but for such a blockbuster, the budget may be increased at any time. It is reasonable to increase it by 10% to 20%, and there may be more investment in the future. If you want to play, it's a big gamble. Seeing Su Ming thinking, Longwu didn't rush him and waited quietly. Brother Shi, if the filming starts in the near future, when can it be released? Su Ming suddenly asked. Longwu's eyes lit up slightly. I thought you would ask questions like this about the director, screenwriter, and leading actor. Those are all details, not important, Su Ming said. Longwu nodded seriously. Yes, this is a big deal. The shooting cycle determines when the money can be recovered. For businessmen, the most terrible thing is the interruption of funds. But don't worry, the Hong Kong film model is different from Hollywood. It cannot be said that one is better or worse. The styles are just different. A play takes several years in Hollywood. According to our method, the same quality can be completed in a few months. Of course, in terms of special effects, we can only invite European teams and speed up by adding money. How about this, brother Shi? I will give you an answer tomorrow about the specific investment amount. Do you think it's okay? Su Ming asked. After returning to the hotel that night, Su Ming immediately contacted the heads of the subordinate companies to quickly calculate the funds that all companies can call and the funds that must be reserved to ensure the normal operation of the company, as well as the planned income for the next step. Immediately afterwards, he did not sleep all night. It was exciting. The Warcraft movie, this is an opportunity that fell from the sky. As a casual player of World of Warcraft, although Su Ming rarely spends time playing the game, he is still very familiar with the situation of the game. He not only has a large number of players in China, but also has a huge number of fans all over the world. This is a movie that can be used to sell feelings, which determines the box office basis. At the same time, since there are also a large number of players in the West, it can easily open up the European and American markets. Due to cultural differences, it is difficult for any Chinese local film to truly open up the Western market, and the more the film can reflect the essence of Chinese culture, the more so. Su Ming has never limited his vision to the local market when he runs a film company. From the first film, he has considered the Western market, but it has been proved that it is too difficult for Eastern films to truly open up the ticket warehouse in the Western world. World of Warcraft is a good opportunity that fell from the sky. As for whether it will be a bad movie, Su Ming did not think much about it. After talking about movies with Xi and Linla several times, Su Ming has some new understandings of the so-called bad movies. There are two types of bad movies. One is that they are criticized for not making money, and the other is that they are criticized but make money. The Legend of the Gods belongs to the former, while movies with a huge fan base and the signboard of sentiment belong to the latter. There are too many so-called XX big movies in China, which are so bad that they can't be made any worse, but they make a lot of money, relying on the fan effect and sentiment. According to Su Ming's current understanding of the world film market and the World of Warcraft game, even if this is really a bad movie, it is absolutely not a problem to guarantee a box office of more than $300 million worldwide. In fact, Su Ming himself has thought about filming World of Warcraft, but on the one hand, he is limited by funds. This kind of magical blockbuster cannot be played without a few hundred million Chinese yuan, and he can't take it out for the time being. But the most important thing is that he still can't get the copyright. Shooting and producing World of Warcraft, as long as it is a mature film company, it is destined to make money. Excluding the theater distribution fees and the dividends distributed to Blizzard Entertainment, the income must be at least close to double. In the West, I may not be 100% sure, because the cost of filming in the West is more than 3 times that of the East. The main reason for this understanding is that Su Ming is a World of Warcraft player himself, and he has played it intermittently for many years, and has a personal experience of the status of this game in the minds of players. Lian Longwu actually does not have this advantage, and most entrepreneurs in Hong Kong do not have this advantage either. Most of the players who have this in-depth understanding of the market advantage do not have the money to invest in filming. Xiangzhou may have it, but after all, he is not Longwu himself, and it is impossible for Longwu to experience this feeling. Longwu came to him, firstly because he was indeed short of money, and secondly, it was more or less to repay the favor of the last Fengshen legend. He also has an advantage that no one else has: animals. There are a large number of beasts and fantasy animals in the World of Warcraft game. Moreover, with the supervision and guidance of Blizzard Entertainment and the participation of Daowin Pictures, this future World of Warcraft may not be a big bad movie. If a fantasy blockbuster can be shot well, it is difficult to estimate the market in the international market. In the past, the Lord of the Rings series invested $250 million and the total box office reached $2.9 billion. Su-Ming doesn't expect $2.9 billion. As long as the global box office of this movie can break $500 million, he can make a lot of money. If it reaches $1 billion, it will be a super big piece of fat meat. The greater the investment, the greater the return. And Su-Ming's idea is deeper than Long Wu. Even if this movie doesn't make money, as long as it doesn't lose too much, Su-Ming has decided to invest, and the bigger the momentum, the better. Because, under the Daowin Group, the key enterprise ranked in the first echelon of listing is Daowin Film and Television. Daowin Film and Television wants to go public, and it lacks an influential big production. Nothing can open up the market quickly and increase the popularity of Daowin Film and Television on a global scale better than World of Warcraft. Even if it is a bad movie. Once Daowin Film can go public, the income in the stock market will be the real big head, which will make Su-Ming from a well-known local entrepreneur to a real wealthy class, and in the film and entertainment level, he will be on par with Long Wu, Huaxiaxing, and a series of big crocodiles in the mainland. For a small and medium-sized entrepreneur like Su-Ming, the real first pot of gold is actually in the stock market. If you want to become a rich man, you might as well set a small goal first: go public. It can be foreseen that when the huge cash flow of the stock market is injected into various companies, it will inevitably have a substantial improvement on the entire Daowin Group. Whether it is continuing to make movies or preparing for more listing sequences, it will be easy. These days, the fastest way to make money is not to do business, but to play with capital. Although manipulating capital itself does not generate value, it can bring the maximum benefits to the trader in the short term. Capital accumulates like a snowball. The richer the person, the easier it is to make money and build a huge financial empire in a short period of time. However, pure capital manipulation has huge risks. Without industry, there is no foundation, and any strong yin wind can blow it down. Capital operation based on industry is relatively safe. Su-Ming does not lack industry now, but lacks this first pot of gold to start capital operation. Moreover, Su-Ming was not worried about losing all his money in this gamble. The player base of World of Warcraft was there. Even if the movie failed, it would not be a problem to make 100 or 200 million yuan in box office worldwide. If it was a disaster, he would only lose tens of millions. Su-Ming sometimes played it safe because he was young and had plenty of time to develop slowly, but also because of his youth, he would not hesitate to make a move when it was time to make a move because he could afford to lose. There is nothing in the world that is 100% sure. If there is more than 60%, you can make a move. Compared with the huge chain returns once successful, the tens of millions of yuan that may be paid for failure, Su-Ming is willing to take a gamble. The next afternoon, the total amount was counted. At present, the total amount of money that Su-Ming could mobilize in various industries was about 180 million Chinese yuan. The bulk of it was the surplus from the last movie shooting, and the recent profit book funds of various companies. Su-Ming gritted his teeth and said, either don't do it, or do it in full, and invest all the 180 million yuan. This almost drained his cash flow. Fortunately, the solid foundation laid for the group's companies is in good operation, and there will be a steady stream of income in the future, which can ensure the stability of the company's operation. In fact, if Su-Ming grits his teeth, he can withdraw another sum of money to make up nearly 200 million. Every time he makes money, he will reserve a small part and put it into the financial management treasury. After a year, this treasury has more than 10 million, including principal and interest. But after thinking about it, he still didn't move. This money is not for himself, but for my mother. In case I have a problem in the future, like my father, my mother will not be in financial trouble. Early in the morning of the third day, the company's royal lawyer Liang Sichen brought a whole team of lawyers to Hong Kong and moved into Longwu's villa. Led by Su Ming, they discussed the specific details of the cooperation with Longwu and made it clear on paper. 180 million investment, plus Longwu's own 200 million, and more than 80 million Hong Kong dollars injected by Sheng, almost 500 million Chinese yuan, cooperation between shareholders and Blizzard Entertainment, legal provisions, various agreements are vast and complicated, brothers should settle accounts clearly, everything must be determined in advance to avoid disputes later. After this conversation, Su Ming stayed in Longwu's villa for a whole week. In the week, two major and minor things happened. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 724. In just 1 week, two things happened. On the night when the team of lawyers representing Daowin Film and Television and CAI Liming, the direct person in charge of the film and television company, entered the Longwu villa, another team of lawyers also appeared in the villa. Su Ming spent a lot of money this time. He was bold in strategy and absolutely cautious in tactics. He used all the legal and economic talents of the group. The lawyers in the entire team of lawyers specialize in economics, politics, criminal law, civil law, Western law, etc., almost all of them. Everything was covered, including Liang Sichen who led the team, and Cai Liming, the representative of the film and television company, a total of 9 people. This was not a street killing, but a negotiation. The delegation of 9 people was large enough, and it also showed Su Ming's attention and sincerity. The subsequent lawyer team pales in comparison, with a local lawyer from Xiangjiang and 2 assistants. The boss of this team is one of the 3 parties involved in this investment, Sheng, the leader of the session, Ale. A large group of lawyers and professionals were drafting legal documents and negotiating cooperation details downstairs, while the 3 bosses were drinking and chatting in the small living room upstairs. It's okay for Longwu to call him Ale. Regardless of his age or seniority, Longwu, a gangster in the 1990s, is much taller than Sheng now. Su Ming can't call him that. Yes, call each other Brother Le. Brother Le is in his early 40s this year. He is wearing a simple jacket, jeans, and has short, sleek hair. He looks very energetic. When he speaks, he smiles with a very friendly but not artificial smile. It has nothing to do with the so-called community at all, more like a small and medium-sized entrepreneur whose career is on the rise. After meeting, Brother Le briefly mentioned the misunderstanding that happened at Yaguangdang a few days ago, but Su Ming didn't take it seriously. They both laughed, and the matter was over. Longwu closed the door and said seriously, "It's all. As for me, I will say it bluntly, this drama is a rare opportunity, and it will definitely make money, but the total is less than 500 million now, and it is likely that additional investment will be required in the future, so you two must be mentally prepared." Su Ming nodded slightly. The investment was too big. Both he and Longwu were eager to shorten the shooting cycle to recover the investment. This required the cooperation of foreign special effects and actor teams, working overtime like the domestic crew, and even risking their lives to fight. It's not that you can't fight for your life, you can fight for the life of foreigners, the key is that you have to give them enough money. Brother Le frowned slightly. Brother 10, I will not participate in any subsequent investment. Longwu rolled his eyelids slightly and asked calmly, "Why? I dragged you into the game, and now you tell me that I can't hold on anymore." In fact, with such a large investment, not only LEGE could not sustain it, but Longwu and Su Ming were also under great pressure. Almost all the working capital was used up, and they were very stretched. Brother 10, our situation is really different. Brother Le hesitated, glanced at Su Ming, and Longwu said, Su Ming is also on his own. We are all doing legal business together. There is nothing we can't say. Brother Le smiled apologetically at Su-ming, then nodded, and said gloomily, Shinji is passed down from father to son. Only the person named Xiang can sit in that chair. Although Huaxia Star is a listed company, it is 10th brother who keeps your word. But winning is different. As a talker, I can only work for 2 years. There are only 3 months left in my term. Not to mention that after 3 months, I won't have the power to speak. Even with the 80 million now, there are still people in the company. Many prestigious brothers question me for taking too many risks. Times have changed, and Zheng's funds are getting tighter. This 80 million is almost all of his legal income. Su-ming understood. Now Leg was Zheng's mediator and could use the company's funds to make movies. However, after 3 months of re-election and a new mediator, he couldn't decide whether to continue investing. Even if the person involved is willing to invest in the follow-up, from Lege's point of view, he is not willing to see it. Who wants one more person to share his money? Your rules for Zheng. Longwu shook his head and smiled, is it possible to connect the banker? Wow, Brother 10, you want me to die? Brother Le said with a bitter smile, when I came back, under so much pressure, no one dared to even talk about it. Who dares to do that now? Who would do that? The whole club beat him together. When I was a young and dangerous boy, I thought it was 10,000 times better to win than Shinji. Why, in the election, everyone would have a chance to stand out, but I was really jealous. Shinji, why, everyone wants to be the emperor forever. It seemed that Brother Le was really in a dilemma. He complained to himself like he was talking about crosstalk. Don't talk about this. It's almost 20 years since I returned to join a society to try to gain some side benefits. It will be harmful and useless. Longwu waved his hand, looked at Su-ming, and said, Ali's side has a maximum limit of 80 million Hong Kong dollars, and my side has the most. If you provide another 30 to 40 million, how much more can you probably provide? 20 to 30 million is relatively easy. No matter how much it is, I'm not sure. Su-ming thought for a while and said. Yeah. Longwu frowned slightly. According to common sense, the cost of such a large-scale production is 2 to 3 billion US dollars in the West. The cost of Hong Kong movies is low, less than 1/3 of that in the West. A reserve fund of 500 million Chinese dollars is enough. But the 3 people present all hope to make quick money, and the investment is too big. If it takes several years of filming to get back the investment, no one can bear it. Again, Xiangzhang can speed up the progress, but since this film is for the international market, there must be a large group of ghosts involved. If you want these people to speed up the progress, you have to give them money. As the saying goes, money can make all the difference. There is no better solution for the time being. None of the 3 people present want to recruit new people to share the money. Fortunately, there is still 500 million yuan as a foundation, and it is not yet at the point where they are at the end of their rope and really need to continue to invest. Let's start the crew first. Before leaving, Brother Le specially called Jixiang, the current nominal boss, and asked Jixiang to come to Su-ming in person to serve tea and apologize. Su-ming smiled and waved his hand and said no need. These low-level underworld brothers are so stubborn that they don't need to mention it again after the matter is over, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. The first thing doesn't seem to be a big deal. The 3 bosses met for a meeting and there was no problem in front of them. But the 3 of them felt an invisible economic pressure. The second thing is just the opposite. Maybe in the long run, it is a good thing, but at present, from the perspective of the parties involved, it is definitely a huge tragedy. Song Lulu went back to the mainland alone, leaving Ho Long Tao alone in Hong Kong. Before leaving, Song Lulu told Ho Long Tao that she wanted to separate for a while and go back to calmly think about the relationship between the two. They are married to each other, but they are just living together and have not registered for marriage. Couples usually say separate for a while to calm down, which basically means breaking up. This happened on the second day when Su Ming came to the villa to discuss business. Ho Longtao did not give up. After 4 days, he called Song Lulu again. In a very ordinary ice cream shop in Kowloon, Su Ming, Lin Mu, and Ho Longtao sat together. On the table in front of them were iced pineapple buns, a cup of yuan yang, and 2 iced lemon teas. What did she say? Su Ming sipped a sip of iced lemon tea and asked Ho Longtao. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 725. This ice house is called Kowloon Ice House. It has an old-fashioned decoration from the 1970s. There are several old ceiling fans that are spinning lazily. There are posters in traditional Chinese characters on the wall. The numbers with a sense of age seem to pull people back to the past. The checkered floor tiles embedded on the ground are particularly colorful under the warm yellow light. A few scattered customers leaned in the booths, leisurely drinking coffee and chatting about horses. In fact, this is a Starbucks, but it is perfectly combined with the traditional ice house in Hong Kong. It is a quiet and comfortable place for friends to chat. This place was introduced by policewoman Ho Po Man when I came to Hong Kong last time. That day in the coffee shop, Ho Po Man and Su Ming talked about the famous snack shops in Hong Kong. Ho Po Man introduced many of them like a treasure, but the one that impressed Su Ming the most was Kowloon Ice House. The reason is very simple. A movie about Young and Dangerous was shot here, and the name was Kowloon Ice House. People of his age grew up watching Young and Dangerous movies when they were young. Although the people he deals with now are all real young and dangerous bosses, which is completely different from the world seen in the movies, he still has some feelings. Ho Longtao took out his mobile phone in a daze and handed it to Su Ming, which contained several voice clips. After pressing the play button, Song Lulu's voice sounded in his ears. A cliché, but very realistic passage. Song Lulu felt that after being with Ho Longtao for 2 years, Ho Longtao made her feel that she could not see the future. A woman's youth is limited, and she didn't want to waste her youth on Ho Longtao. The word waste was Song Lulu's original words. Su Ming frowned slightly. There are many ways to say things, and there are many ways to break up. This person who thinks he speaks directly chose a word that does not take into account Ho Longtao's feelings as a man. There were many voice messages. Song Lulu was quite considerate. She found many reasons for breaking up and elaborated on her difficulties. She even brought out what her mother said to her. In her words, she couldn't blame her for the breakup. It was all because Ho Longtao had no future. In fact, from the perspective of ordinary people, Ho Longtao's future is not too bad. He has a free job and a small private cinema. Even if he pays the rent seriously, he can earn less than 10,000 yuan every month. He has a relatively free job. In Yangchuan, a second-tier city, many people envy him. She mentioned it several times, asking me to change my job and work in a big company. The income was a little lower at the beginning, but she said that working in a big company would be prestigious. Ho Longtao had drunk a lot of wine before he came. He was drunk and spoke incoherently. Su Ming twisted his mouth but didn't say anything. Song Lulu initially fell in love with Ho Longtao because of his slightly unruly literary temperament. For Song Lulu, who had never seen much of the world and moved to the city from the urban-rural fringe outside the North Third Ring Road, this kind of literary and artistic atmosphere of the only child in the city was very lethal at first. To put it bluntly, Song Lulu was not short of money, but she lacked the sense of identity of the city. Finding Ho Longtao made her feel like a city dweller. Over time, the attraction of this literary temperament was gradually replaced by very secular things, especially her mother, who was particularly dissatisfied with Ho Longtao and felt that he was a grown man who was not doing his job properly. When people asked her where her future son-in-law worked, she was embarrassed to ask, and kept urging Ho Longtao to find a job in a well-known company. Song Lulu and Ho Long Tao had quarreled over this matter more than once. Su Ming ate ice and fire pineapple buns and drank ice lemon tea while listening to a story, absent-minded. Lin Mu, who was standing opposite him, kicked him under the table and glared at him. He meant that the monkey was so sad. Why don't you say something to persuade him? You are still watching the show. Do you have any heart? To be honest, Su Ming did not feel the same way. He was even a little glad that Ho Long Tao and Song Lulu broke up. There is a kind of woman who looks good, does not cheat, can manage the housework, and knows how to live. It is far from being a beauty. But there is only one thing. This kind of woman does not understand or even despises her boyfriend's career. If it is slightly different from the so-called public around, she thinks it is not doing her job properly. Such a person will trap and drag a man to death. Song Lulu is such a person. She wants ready-made results. If Ho Long Tao is now the manager of a well-known cinema, goes to work and goes to get off work on time every day, occasionally goes to social events like all the bosses, and earns an annual salary of more than 100,000 or 200,000 yuan, Su Ming believes that she will follow Ho Long Tao wholeheartedly. The more Ho Long Tao talked, the more depressed he became. He was absent-minded and couldn't help crying. What the hell are you crying about? I'm closing a business worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a second. I'm here to hear you cry. Su Ming rubbed Ho Long Tao's hair vigorously. It's just a breakup. Are you afraid that you can't find someone with your conditions? But I have nothing now. I can't even pay the full price for a house. Ho Long Tao said. Su Ming could probably guess the reason why Ho Long Tao was sad. In addition to the years of love, there was also a sense of frustration. His career and pursuit were completely denied by the woman he loved the most, especially Song Lulu's words, which made Ho Long Tao feel worthless. How could a young man bear this? Song Lulu was telling him directly that someone like you was not worthy of finding a girlfriend and was not qualified to get married. Su Ming couldn't understand it. After all, they had been in a relationship for several years. If they broke up, they broke up. How could Song Lulu say such hurtful words and say it with confidence? Isn't the heart made of flesh? Her logic is flawed. Su Ming rolled his eyes and asked back, there are so many people with lower incomes than you, working for 3,000 or 4,000 yuan a month, and buying houses with mortgages. Aren't they all living the same? No one in that family has died. The words were a bit harsh, and Lin Mu shook his head at Su Ming. Su Ming ignored him and continued to say to Ho Long Tao, material conditions are the foundation, that's true, but your material conditions are enough to live. Speaking of houses, her family is not without houses. No matter how hard you work, you may not be able to have more houses than hers. After all, her house was demolished and it was too easy to get it. She didn't go through the stage of struggle, so she is still spiritually poor and insecure. If you stay with such a person, you will be exhausted to death for the rest of your life. It's better to break up. Ah, Ho Long Tao looked at Su Ming with wide eyes, and Lin Mu rolled his eyes. When they broke up, he persuaded them with just one sentence, it's better to break up. This is to ruin the scene. Lao Su, you said that. Lin Mu laughed strangely. Actually, I also think they are not suitable. Song Lulu. Don't mention the name, it's painful to hear, Ho Long Tao said depressedly. When people are sad, sometimes, if you accompany him to be sad, his mood will improve. In other cases, if you turn around and curse him, and say that the things and people he thinks are worth being sad about are worthless, it can have unexpected effects. At least Ho Long Tao seems to be less sad now, and more confused. Lin Mu coughed and said, okay, I also think you are not suitable, it's better to break up. But Lao Su, if they really break up, Monkey Cinema must not continue to open in Song Lulu's house, you have to find a way. Lin Mu and Su Ming sang the same tune, and Ho Long Tao was even more confused. Originally, maybe if he tried to save the relationship, there was still hope of reconciliation. It can even be said that now he and Song Lulu are just having a temper. But these two old men just said a few words and completely confirmed that they had broken up, and even cut off their way back. Monkey, what do you say? Su Ming looked at Ho Long Tao, picked up his mobile phone and shook it. Whether she really broke up or used the excuse of breaking up to make trouble with you, you heard what she said, and you must know what kind of person she is. If you are willing to continue to toss with her, we will let you do whatever you want. If you want to break up, don't worry about the financial situation, I support you. Ho Long Tao thought for a moment and gritted his teeth. Okay, break up. Okay. After returning to Yangchuan City, I will find a place for you and we will open a small cinema by ourselves. Su Ming also gritted his teeth. The three of them chatted in the ice room until more than 11 o'clock in the evening. When they walked out of the door, the cool breeze outside made Ho Long Tao sober up a lot. Wait a minute, why do I feel that I was actually tricked into breaking up by you two guys? Yes, Lin Mu nodded seriously, I have long seen that you two are not suitable, but I just haven't had the opportunity. Ho Long Tao said speechlessly. You've thought it through. It's not too late to regret it now, Su Ming said with a smile. Damn it, I don't regret it. I've had enough. I've been begging for mercy like a grandson every day. I've never heard a good word from her. Her family looks at me like I'm begging for food, Ho Long Tao said bitterly. Su Ming laughed, and then he smiled bitterly in his heart. Damn it, when I don't need the money, it doesn't come. I don't know what to do with more than 100 million in the bank. Rosa calls me every day to introduce various financial services, as if the money can't be used at all. When I need the money, everything comes at once. I've invested hundreds of millions in making a movie, and I don't have anything left. Now I agree to help Ho Long Tao open a cinema. Even if it's a small cinema, it will take tens of millions of funds to acquire a state-owned enterprise that is about to go bankrupt. How about renting a venue directly? Yangchuan City has several state-owned cinemas that are not doing well and usually don't show movies. Su Ming's mind quickly turned. That way, he could spend less money. Even if his funds were tight, it would be easier to open $1 million cinema. Fortunately, opening a small cinema is not a top priority. It's not too late to think about it after returning to the mainland. After a week, the contract with Longwu has been negotiated, and the next is free time. Back to the original topic of coming to Hong Kong, horse racing. I don't know how lucky I will be this time. I will make a little money, at least I have to solve the problem of Ho Long Tao Cinema. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 726. Wang Naicheng Racecourse. In the last few weeks of the horse racing season, the racecourse is no longer deserted, but full of people. Those who have won money want to pursue the victory, while those who have lost money want to seize the opportunity in the last few weeks to try again. Of course, there are also true equestrian enthusiasts. Have a good time, brother, let's go out to play and don't keep a straight face, okay? Su Ming patted Ho Long Tao's shoulder. Lin Mu was unable to come because of the show today. Ho Long Tao and Su Ming came to the racecourse alone to bet on horses. They met Kui Bai Ga by chance at the gate. Anyway, what a coincidence, Su Ming didn't bother to care about it. He and Ho Long Tao were not very familiar with Xiangjiang, so it would be nice to have a local pretty girl as a tour guide. Moreover, Su Ming has a plan today, and Kui Baijia is here, so he can act as a witness and help him out. After all, the relationship of several years was gone. Ho Long Tao was still a little depressed and had not completely recovered from the shadow of broken love. He said a little sickly, I don't understand horses either, I just follow you and place bets. Susheng, which horse have you taken your fancy? Kui Baiga, who was on the side, was very interested. He stared at the horse book in his hand and said to himself, the most popular horse in this issue is Queen Star. Wow, if you don't know it, you will be shocked when you see it. This horse is actually a purebred descendant of Princess Anne of England when she won the World Championship. Susheng, it's really interesting. Princess Anne? What's your background? Su Ming asked. Zara Anne Elizabeth Phillips, British Princess, World Equestrian All-Around Champion, BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 2006, the eldest granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II, and the 13th heir to the throne of 16 sovereign countries in the Commonwealth. Kui Baijia also seemed to be an equestrian enthusiast, and he talked a lot. Su Ming remembered 2 points. First, as the 13th heir, unless all the previous 12 unlucky ones died collectively, the throne would basically have nothing to do with him. It is also a constitutional monarchy. The power of the Queen of England is much greater than that of the Emperor of Japan. The Constitution stipulates that the Queen of England has the final decision-making power to appoint or remove the Prime Minister and national affairs. So far, every British Prime Minister has one afternoon every week meeting with the Queen of England. Of course, no one knows what the two talked about, whether it was national affairs or whether they were drinking afternoon tea and taking a nap. Whether the Queen of England has real power or not. At least according to the law, the Queen of England has the right to take complete control of this country at any time. Point 2, married. A married woman is not very attractive. Dafa Huohuo and Shivealong did not participate in the competition today, so Su Ming has no one he must support. He won tens of millions in horse racing last time, and the news was kept within a certain range. Of course, Kui Baiga didn't know about the person in front of him. Susheng was still a master of gambling and kept recommending horse racing to him. The first one on the list is the Queen Star, who has the pedigree of a world champion horse racing horse. Let's go down and see the horses before we talk, Su Ming said loudly. There were people everywhere in the racecourse and it was so bustling that if you were quieter, you couldn't hear him at all. The 3 people moved sideways from the edge of the stands to the edge of the sandy area below where horses were walked before the game. The place is even more crowded. Before placing bets, many horse fans will come to see with their own eyes the horses they have chosen. Everyone feels that they are a bull. Kui Baiga opened the way in front with her breasts straightened out, and the people around her gave way one after another, looking sideways and amazed. This girl came back from studying in the UK. Unlike the beauties from the mainland who are as slender as willows and can be blown away by a gust of wind, she goes to the gym regularly in the UK. She is healthy, beautiful, and strong. They managed to carve out a bloody path smoothly. The 3 of them lay on the railing and looked in the direction of Kui Baiga's finger. Su Ming saw the Queen Star. A pure black racehorse, shiny all over, without a trace of hair. Among the 12 horses, it attracts attention at a glance. However, he was a bit unsociable. He stood alone at a distance from other race horses. There was no horse within a few meters around him. Susheng, this horse is different at first glance. Believe me, I'm right, Kui Baiga said proudly. Su Ming squinted his eyes and took a look, pretending to be a horse, and secretly used his mental power to communicate with the Queen Star. After a few seconds, Su Ming withdrew his mental power, then spread it out like a big net, making slight contact with the other 11 horses present. Beautiful girl, are you sure you want to buy the Queen Star? Su Ming asked. Yes, Kui Baiga said confidently, there is simply no other choice. Su Ming nodded, okay, help me buy the Queen Star for 10,000 yuan. Mr. Ho, will you also buy this horse? Kui Baiga took the Jockey Club betting card from Su Ming and asked Ho Longtao. Ho Longtao said absently, I'll just buy whatever Su Ming buys. Buy it for me. Yeah, 500 yuan. Kui Baiga was about to agree, but Su Ming smiled and patted Ho Long Tao on the shoulder. Betting on horse racing is just for excitement. What's the point in buying the same horse among 3 people? Why don't you change it? Ho Long Tao was helpless and said, "That's okay, but what do you want to buy? I don't understand horses." Su Ming pointed casually, "That white rose is very good, it looks so strong." "Then it's the white rose, 500 yuan," Ho Long Tao said. Kui Baiga smiled, but in his heart he somewhat disdained Su Ming. This young boss is good at everything, but like many mainland bosses, he cannot escape the category of nouveau riche and has too little background. For example, when it comes to horse racing, only those who don't know how to do it will look at whether the horse is strong and has well-developed muscles. It's just like a fight, if you don't have the big guy, you will definitely win. The horses that can enter the competition are all physically qualified. The most intuitive and effective way to select a horse is to look at the horse's pedigree. Pedigree means the overall quality and potential of the horse. There is also the level of jockeys. The jockey of Queen Star is also a British professional knight. As for the White Rose, he wasn't even a pure blood, and the jockey was a very ordinary local. But of course Kui Baiga would not say these words to his face. 3 people placed bets, Su Ming 10,000, Kui Baiga 2,000, and Ho Long Tao 500. A few hundred meters away from the ordinary stands, in the VIP stand opposite, there was a box, and Princess Anne and Princess Eugene were also present. "Sister, is Queen Star really a purebred descendant of your toy cabinet? But I think there's something wrong with that horse. It seems to be too withdrawn. Such a horse's ability to withstand pressure is actually very poor. It can only run. When running a downwind race, it is easy to perform abnormally when encountering adversity." Yunijin was in front of the big screen in the box. Through the camera, he could clearly see the horses in the field several hundred meters away. Princess Anne smiled and said, "You can tell that little Eugene has grown up." "Haha, that's right. This horse is nothing more than a hype. It only has 1/8 of the pedigree of the toy cabinet at most." "No wonder," Yunijin said proudly, "then I'll bet on the White Rose." "White Rose? Everyone doesn't like it," Princess Anne said strangely. "There is no absolute winner in this game. This kind of grassroots horse has a good chance of being upset. Let's take a gamble," Yunikin said while placing £1,000 on the betting machine. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 727. The gates were opened, the horses were in the gates, and the race officially began. As the electric gates were all opened at the same time, the 12 participating horses rushed forward like wild dogs that had been freed from their limbs, driven by the jockeys. The 800-meter race was more than halfway through in a blink of an eye. The big screen of the stadium clearly showed the 2 horses in the first group, and the exaggerated and passionate voice of the commentator sounded in the clamor of thousands of spectators. "Wow, Queen Star is indeed a favorite. It has been leading all the way since the gates were opened, and now it has firmly maintained its position as the first horse. It is simply a kingly aura. The horse behind should not be underestimated. Raphael has recovered this year and has won 2 championships. He is only half a horse length behind. He may catch up in the last corner." As he was talking, a white shadow suddenly rushed into the big screen from behind. The horse's head had reached the abdomen of the second-place Raphael, and it was still moving forward at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Huh!" The whole audience suddenly heard a unified surprise. "Huh!" Even the commentator was surprised and said in surprise, "White Rose? Wow, this is a big dark horse. According to the jargon of horse racing, this is a wild horse with no origin." Another commentator joked, "The service of wild chickens is more professional than the dancing girls in the Chinatown Tycoon. Wild horses may not be bad. Hong Kong has a tradition of not being picky about food and sex. Even on TV, dirty jokes are often told. Among the 4 great talents of the year, Huang Zhan even specialized in buying prostitutes for a long time. The commentary of the Jockey Club telling dirty jokes is also one of its characteristics. The previous commentator laughed and scolded, picking, "Ah Chang, do you often go to the Regent Hotel to book a room? Wow, but this White Rose is really good. It has been on par with the second place Raphael." In the field, White Rose, who came up from behind, had already surpassed the second place Raphael while talking, and actually kept the same horse head with the first place Queen Star. Entering the sprint stage, the 2 horses in the first group have been replaced by Queen Star and White Rose. Raphael was not strong enough and was left behind by nearly 2 horse lengths. He had no hope of winning the championship. Horse racing is popular in Hong Kong. In addition to gambling factors, it also represents the Hong Kong people's spirit of tenacious struggle and unwillingness to admit defeat. The grassroots wild horse White Rose suddenly appeared, like a shot of cardiotonic for the audience, especially those grassroots audiences from ordinary backgrounds, who seemed to see their own shadows in White Rose. There were 12 horses in the whole field. Although Queen Star was the favorite, there were many upsets in horse racing. Many people even chose to buy upsets specifically. Once an upset happened, they could make more money. Therefore, the audience who really bought Queen Star were only a minority after all. The whole audience actually rang out cheers for White Rose. White Rose rushed forward with her head down. Queen Star, who had been leading, was obviously a little panicked. While running, she turned her head to look at White Rose on the side several times. Even people who don't know horses can see that Queen Star is distracted. The final sprint was less than 100 meters long, and there was no room for distraction. In the last 20 meters, White Rose finally surpassed Queen Star little by little, and crossed the finish line first with a slight advantage of half a horse's head, winning first place. Queen Star, who was considered a favorite before the race, came in second. "Wow, how could this happen?" Kui Baijia opened her mouth wide, looking depressed. Losing 2,000 yuan didn't matter, but this made her lose face in front of Su Ming. She strongly recommended Queen Star to Su Ming, and just now she thought Su Ming didn't understand horses. In a blink of an eye, Queen Star was overturned. It was still a very embarrassing overturn. If Queen Star could continue to run at its own pace in the final stage without being affected by White Rose, it would be a sure win. Su Ming looked indifferent and laughed. "Of course there are wins and losses in horse racing. If I could win every time, why would I do business? I would be like Li Ka-shing if I came to the race course every day." Speaking of win, Kui Baiga suddenly pointed at the ticket in Ho Long Tao's hand and said excitedly, "Mr. Ho, you bought the White Rose, a one-time winner. Wow, it's a big upset." Ho Long Tao was absent-minded from beginning to end. He didn't even know which horse was the White Rose and which was the Queen Star. He was just watching the fun. He held up the ticket in his hand blankly. "I won? How much did I win?" "According to the odds and probability, the White Rose is a big upset. You bought 500 yuan and can win almost 10,000 yuan, Kui Baiga said. "What?" Ho Long Tao jumped up as if he was struck by electricity. His confused expression disappeared completely. He said excitedly, 10,000. In the blink of an eye, he earned all the money he worked hard for a month. It would be strange if he was not excited. After receiving the award, Ho Long Tao held a small roll of Hong Kong dollars and became absent-minded again. Su Ming casually touched a brown paper bag and handed it to him. "Put the money in it. Don't show your wealth. You are holding a lot of money and waiting to be robbed." Ho Long Tao finally reacted and put the money in the bag. "Are we still gambling?" "Of course, why not? We are here to gamble," Su Ming said as a matter of course, and then asked with a smile, "Don't you miss Song Lulu?" "Damn it, people say that failure in love makes success in gambling. I'm already heartbroken, why do I still miss a woman?" Ho Long Tao said viciously. Kui Baijia looked at Su Ming in surprise. Ho Long Tao could tell at a glance that he didn't know anything about horses. The reason he bought this big dark horse was entirely because of Su Ming's advice. Could it be that Mr. Su was a real master who was not well known? Kui Baijia suddenly remembered that Su Ming also had 2 horses and signed up for the Longines Cup. How could such a person really not know anything about horses? But why did he buy the Queen's Star himself? Seeing Kui Baijia looking at him, Su Ming smiled and said, "Pretty girl, don't look at me, continue to look at horses." In the VIP box, Unicorn and Annie high-fived to celebrate. This is just the beginning. Unicorn clenched his fist, full of confidence. He earned nearly £20,000, which was not enough to repair the car. The big screen showed the list of winners. Due to limited space, only the 10 people with the largest winnings could be shown. The Jockey Club's gambling industry has always been open, fair, and just. If VIP players like Unicorn want to check, they can also check all the winners. The big screen showed several pictures of the winners present. One of the pictures flashed by, revealing the faces of 2 men and 1 woman. Unicorn's eyes widened suddenly. The 2 men in the picture were the guys who smashed her car in the surveillance video that day, especially the young man who led the group. The annoying smile on his face left a deep impression on her. "It's them, Princess," and also saw it, frowned slightly, and looked at Unicorn carefully, fearing that she would make any impulsive moves. Unicorn crossed his arms, narrowed his eyes, and seemed to be brewing something. He muttered, "It seems that they also know how to bet on horses. I wonder how good their skills are." Seeing Unicorn like this, and knew that she had a trick up her sleeve. She thought speechlessly that betting on horses depends on luck for 60%, so there is no skill to speak of. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 728. The second race started soon, and the other 12 horses re-entered the gate. In the last race, Kui Baijia was full of confidence in the Queen's Star, which made Su Ming lose 10,000 yuan. The money was not much, but Kui Baijia felt that these bosses actually cared not about money, but face, especially in front of women. Just now, because of her own mistakes, Su Ming had lost face once. Although Su Ming did not seem to be unhappy, it was hard to guarantee that he had no thoughts in his heart. This time she did not dare to point out the situation randomly, and just watched and did not say anything. On the contrary, Ho Long Tao won 10,000 yuan in the last game. This time he was very excited and stared at each horse with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to see what these horses were thinking. "Which one do you like?" Su Ming asked Ho Long Tao with a smile. Ho Long Tao hesitated for a moment, and said, "I'll listen to you." Su Ming shook his head and smiled, "I just relied on luck." "You just won, and you have good luck. We'll listen to you this time." Kui Baijia nodded vigorously on the side. This was not to curry favor with Su Ming. Anyone who gambles often believes in the word luck. No matter how good your skills are or how sharp your vision is, it's not as good as the god of wealth giving you money to spend. Encouraged by the eyes of the 2, Ho Long Tao pointed uncertainly at a group of chestnut race horses. "I think the lucky Superman is good." Kui Baijia's eyes lit up. Mr. Ho is indeed lucky. She actually also has her eyes on the lucky Superman. All aspects of this horse's information are in the upper reaches of the horses in the same period. In the past season, it has performed very stably and it is not a problem to run into the top 3. And now it looks very good. Its front hooves are slightly digging the ground, showing a little anxiety. This is the performance of a horse that has been holding back its energy, just waiting to burst out as soon as it enters the race. "Okay, let's buy it," Su Ming said. Kui Baijia was about to place a bet, but Su Ming waved his hand and said, "Wait a minute, it's boring to always bet on a single win, why not have a winning streak? Pretty girl, which horse do you think might come in second?" 12 horses, if you guess the first and second, that's a winning streak, the lowest is 66 times. Sushen, you have a big heart. Kuibaijia smiled with eyes wide open. If you want to play, play big. This time I'm betting 50,000 yuan, if I win, it's more than 3 million. If I lose, it's only 50,000 yuan. Su Ming has the temperament of a nouveau riche. Kuibaijia looked at Su Ming in confusion and said, okay, then I'll tell you, don't get angry if I'm wrong. Go ahead. Su Ming nodded. Well, I think the horse red bean bun is pretty good. So, Su Ming paid 50,000 yuan and bet on Xingyuan Superman first and Hung Daobao second. Ho Long Tao gritted his teeth and bet all 10,000 yuan in the first hand, betting on Xingyuan Superman's first single win. And Kuibaijia was relatively safe, buying Xingyuan Superman's position for 5,000 yuan. As long as this horse is in the top 3, no matter which specific ranking it is, she can get about 3 times the profit. Pretty girl, so cautious, Su Ming said with a big smile. Of course I have to be more cautious when spending the money I worked hard to earn, not to mention that this is a gamble. I don't have the generosity of Sushen. Kuibaijia said with a smile. The last time they met in a hurry, Kuibaijia didn't think much of it, but today, after spending a long time together, Su Ming always gave Kuibaijia a feeling of nouveau riche. Except for the last time when he was accurate in horse selection, which surprised Kuibaijia a little, the rest of the time, he was a face of I don't lack money. Sure enough, Su Ming immediately said, don't worry about the money. Take the time to accompany us. If you lose, it's mine. Mr. Su, you are too polite. I don't want to do that. If you are willing, please introduce me to a few dramas. I will be grateful. Kuibaijia understands the man's mind very well. If she nods, Su Ming will definitely cover all the expenses for today without hesitation. However, in this way, her weight in the other party's mind will become very light. What can be earned is probably only today. Whether the other party is really a nouveau riche or pretends to be so, it takes a long time to catch a big fish. The second game begins. In the spotlight, the favorite Xingyuan Superman really ignored everyone's expectations and maintained the lead throughout the whole process. As soon as he got out of the gate, Ho Long Tao couldn't sit still. Like all beginner horse fans, he stood up suddenly and stared at his horse with a nervous look. Halfway through the race, Ho Long Tao was no different from the local Hong Kong horse fans in the race course. His face turned red, he waved the horse book in his hand, and cheered for his horse at the top of his voice. In the final sprint stage, Ho Long Tao's voice was hoarse. The moment when Xingyuan Superman crossed the finish line, Ho Long Tao completely lost his composure, looking up at the sky and howling like a beast. I won, 120,000. Ho Long Tao hugged Su Ming's shoulders, his face flushed. Xingyuan Superman is a hot favorite, so the odds are low, there is almost no bonus, and if you win alone, 10,000 is actually not 120,000, but about 100,000. For ordinary people, that is not a small amount of money. The key is that it only took a few minutes to earn this 100,000 yuan from beginning to end. It was like a drop of money falling from the sky. This efficiency is much higher than the efficiency of Su Ming, an outstanding entrepreneur, in making money. Damn, you spit on my face. Su Ming wiped his face and laughed. Calm down, don't burst your blood vessels. He, Lao Su, I'll wipe it for you. Ho Long Tao said with a smile, it's all thanks to your good luck. Come on, I lost 50,000, Su Ming said. No problem, Lao Su, this 50,000 is on my head. Ho Long Tao is quite loyal. No need, you can keep the money you earn for yourself. In the future, you can buy a house and get married, all thanks to the friendly sponsorship of the people of Hong Kong. After saying that, he winked at Kuibaijia. Among the three of us, Monkey still has the best luck. Kuibaijia felt a little regretful. She won more than 10,000. If she had known earlier, she would have bought a single win. But then she thought, if she listened to Su Ming and bought a continuous win, wouldn't she not make a penny, but lose money? Thinking this way, she felt better. She boldly made a joke to Ho Long Tao, saying, "People say that failure in love is success in gambling. Ho Sheng must be lucky from beginning to end today, and I will also share some good luck." For the next 5 games, the 3 of them placed bets separately. Of course, they still followed Ho Long Tao, who had the best luck. Strangely enough, before each bet, there were always 1 or 2 horses in particularly good condition. Even Ho Long Tao, an outsider, could see it. The bets of these 3 people were quite interesting. If you study psychology, you can probably see the personalities of the 3 people. After Ho Long Tao made more than 10 bets, he became much more cautious. He no longer put all the money he made into the bet like he did the second time. Instead, he chose 3 types: single win, consecutive win, and position. He bought some of each time, and one of them was the biggest. Kui Baijia bought single win twice and position 3 times, but the amount of money he bet each time was different. When he was sure, he bet heavily on single win, and when he was not sure, he bet on position. After 5 games, Ho Long Tao guessed single win 3 times and got it right once, and only missed once. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 729. Ho Long Tao had an amazingly good luck in 5 races in the morning. Every time he went to the sand to watch the horses before the race, he could find a horse that was in particularly good condition. In 5 races, he won 3 times and won 1 position, and he actually won 4 times. The only time he guessed wrong, that horse was a big underdog. No one was optimistic about this horse beforehand, and it had never performed well in previous races. It was unknown whether the horse had taken aphrodisiacs and actually beat the other horses. Not only did Ho Long Tao not guess it, but no one else had thought of this horse. Even the horse manual of this issue said that it is only recommended to bet on this horse in 2 situations: either you have too much money to spend, and it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, just for excitement, or you have only the last $100 left in your entire fortune, and you want to bet whether God will open his eyes and give you a way out. Even so, Ho Long Tao made a fortune by winning 4 races. The brown paper bag in his hand, which was the same size as a small school bag, was already full of money. A full 2,230,000 Hong Kong dollars. Converted into Chinese currency, it has exceeded 2.5 million. He smiled like an idiot, and the whole person was in a state of erraticness, and he didn't look like he had just broken up. 2.5 million, this money is not enough for a small investment for Su Ming. Just kidding, if he is happy one day, he can just give Nangong Yan a few high-end headwear jewelry, or buy her a car to show off, and maybe the number will exceed this. But for an ordinary person in a second-tier city, even an ordinary person like Ho Long Tao who has a good income, 2.5 million is definitely a huge sum of money. Many so-called white-collar workers have to work for a lifetime to earn a salary of 3,000 to 4,000 yuan a month. In Yangchuan, a second-tier city, excluding villas and several luxury communities with special backgrounds, 2.5 million can buy a new house of more than 100 square meters in the best location. Kui Baijia was also beaming with joy. She had spotted Ho Long Tao's fortune light and had been following him in placing bets. Although she was relatively rational and conservative, she had earned as much as 420,000 Hong Kong dollars in one morning. For a second-tier actress who became famous with Hai Mimi, this was not an income that could be ignored. This made Su Ming look at this woman with a new eye. From the way she placed bets, it could be seen that this big-breasted beauty was not as brainless as imagined. On the contrary, she should be a person with a plan and a certain degree of self-control. Such a person might not suddenly become popular, but if they took steady steps, accumulated over a long period of time, and added a little bit of luck, they should be able to achieve some achievements. Similarly, in Kui Baijia's eyes, Su Ming's image had also changed a lot. The reason why Ho Longtao guessed White Rose in the first game was not because of his good vision, but because Su Ming suddenly told him not to buy the hot favorite Queen Star. Let his good friend give up the favorites and buy the unpopular ones, and finally it turned out to be a prophecy, and it was a big upset. Kui Baiga was still a little confused at the time, wondering if this mainland boss was playing dumb, but in fact he was the real expert. However, after a few games, Kui Baiga had completely dispelled his initial doubts. This Mr. Su probably really doesn't understand horses. He didn't win a single game in 5 games. Not only does he not understand horses, but he also likes to be unique and show his personality. Obviously Ho Longtao's fortune is so prosperous, but he doesn't follow every time, and buys the horses he likes on his own, and loses everything in the end. In addition to not really understanding horses, there is another characteristic that makes Kui Baiga very refreshed. Some people are rich, but they pretend to be rich in front of others, and cry behind their swollen faces. Some people are really rich, and they are willful and treat money as straw paper. Su Ming obviously showed the latter. 5 games in a row, including the first game, 6 games, all lost. But the bet amount is getting bigger and bigger, and the way to bet on horses is getting more and more difficult, and the game is thrilling. 30,000, single win, lost. 50,000, single win, lost. 100,000, consecutive wins, lost. 200,000, consecutive wins, lost again. Hundreds of thousands of dollars went down the drain in the blink of an eye, and this local tyrant brother didn't blush or feel nervous. In the last game, he actually bought a single tee for 200,000. 200,000 is not a lot of money. Kui Baigia can also take it out. But knowing that there is more than 99% chance of losing this 200,000, is there anyone willing to take it? Single tee means guessing 1, 2, or 3 out of 12 horses, regardless of the specific ranking. According to the probability of permutations and combinations, the chance of winning is 1 in 220. There is not even a 1% chance. This is not just buying a bag or a car. No matter how expensive the bag or car is, you can always buy something with the money. If you lose the 200,000, you lose it. You have nothing. Thinking about the situation at that time, Kui Baigia still has lingering fears. This is not horse racing. It is clearly a big local tyrant from the mainland who got really angry and lost his temper. He doesn't care about the money. He just doesn't believe in this evil. He just gambles and is willful. Kui Baigia even thinks that maybe Su Ming encountered something unpleasant and came to the casino to spend money to vent. Of course, in such a gamble, the loss is high, and once you win, you will win a lot. For example, the last game was 200,000, and the winning is more than 40 million. People don't care about that little money. Before the 6th game started, Kui Baigia was a little scared and secretly glanced at Su Ming, who was watching the horse racing at the side of the field. He thought, this rich man, is he going to play a bigger game? He dared to buy a single tee. Will there be a quadruple bet of more than 1,000 times and more than 10,000 times? Su Ming stood at the side of the racecourse with his eyes narrowed, feeling Kui Baijia's gaze and the subtle changes in Kui Baijia's attitude after several games. He secretly calculated that the time was almost right. There is certainly a reason why Ho Longtao can always win. As his mental power became stronger and stronger, Su Ming's ability to gamble on horses also leaped up. Compared with the last time he came to Hong Kong, his vision of horses is much more accurate. The Hong Kong Jockey Club, Any gambling organization in the world cannot become someone's cash machine without limit. But occasionally being lucky and winning a big prize is acceptable. But he has already won once. The last time he came to Hong Kong, he took away more than 40 million from the Jockey Club, which attracted Long Wu to come forward. Long Wu can't show up again this time, but he has to take the feelings of the Jockey Club into consideration. If someone can prove that he really doesn't understand horses, and he played purely out of spite, and ended up getting lucky and winning a large sum of jackpot, Su Ming estimates that he shouldn't break the Jockey Club's bottom line. Of course, this depends on how much money is swindled. If he wins more than $1 billion at a time, the SAR government will probably come to talk to him. If it goes as expected, this is also the last time to come to the Jockey Club to withdraw money. The first time is luck, the second time is coincidence, and the third time, even an idiot can see that it is a conspiracy. If the situation allows, Su Ming doesn't want to make money in this way, but now he is really short of money. Good steel should be used on the blade, so use this last chance at the stage when he needs money the most. Horse, give me some face, it's always hundreds of thousands of losses, I'm also uncomfortable. Su Ming prayed secretly and communicated with the race horses with his mental power. To be honest, the last time he bought a single tee for 200,000, it was not a show, but he really liked 3 horses and wanted to make a profit in this round. No matter how strong the mental strength is, the situation on the field changes suddenly, and it is not 100% safe. One of the 3 horses he liked did not make it into the top 3. At the beginning of the 6th game, under Kui Biga's speechless eyes, Su Ming really played a bigger game again, still 200,000, and bought a triple lottery with odds of more than 1,000 times. Soon, the 200,000 was wasted again. Kui Biga found that this local tycoon who had always been calm finally showed a bitter smile after this failure. Su Ming, forget it, don't play so big, let's split my profit in half. Ho Long Tao persuaded on the side. Kui Biga also said, Mr. Su, a little gambling is good for your health, why don't you stop and I'll treat everyone to seafood. Su Ming seemed to have accepted the 2 people's good advice, but he still looked a little unwilling and said, okay, let's play one last time, no matter if we win or lose, we'll go eat seafood. But you treat me, pretty girl, and I'll pay the bill. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 730. In a horse race, the time the horse runs on the field is actually very short. 1,600 meters is already a long distance. The horse uses all his strength to finish the race in just over a minute. However, horses galloping and competing on the field is just the climax of horse racing. Horse racing is similar to other things. You have to do enough foreplay and wipe it clean from beginning to end. Only then can you enjoy the climax. Worry-free, before the horse race, the commentator introduces the horses, the audience looks at the horses, and places bets. This is all the preparation beforehand. After that, the prizes are received, the amount is announced, and the battle situation is analyzed. There are a lot of things before and after. A horse race actually takes a lot time. Su Ming said that he would bet on the last game, no matter whether he won or lost. Kui Biga looked at his watch and the schedule, and saw that there was only the last game left, so he didn't say much. Neither she nor Ho Long Tao planned to place bets in this game, and the 2 of them won a lot. Ho Long Tao was still a little ready to make a move, but Kui Biga kindly reminded him to give up when he was ready and not to use up his luck all at once. Ho Long Tao hesitated for a moment, nodded and stopped participating. Su Ming was at the edge of the small stand, looking at the dozens of horses walking on the sand with seriousness for more than 10 minutes. He didn't make a decision until the last few minutes before the deadline for betting. As Kui Biga expected, this willful young rich man played a big game this time. I bought a 4-ring chain for 300,000 yuan. In horse racing, Threefold, fourfold, threefold and fourfold are very close to each other. N-fold is to guess the first N horses, but the order does not need to be guessed. N-fold is not only to guess the right horse, but also to guess the right horse. To the order. Compared with single target guessing like single win, the difficulty of serial and heavy lottery is obviously not on the same level, and of course, the benefits are not on the same level either. After the previous consecutive failures, even the operator of the betting station knew Su-ming, and couldn't help but add another sentence, "Sir, the probability of a 4-in-1 series is very low, less than 2/1000ths." This young operator was also kind-hearted. Seeing that Su-ming kept losing money, he gave a warning. A fat supervisor next to her frowned and glared at her. The little girl was so frightened that she stuck out her tongue and did not dare to speak. She lowered her head and typed out the receipt, and handed it to Su-ming with both hands. "Sir, please keep it. Thank you for your kindness. If I win, I'll give you a 2,000th bonus." Su-ming smiled, stuffed the theoretically potentially sky-high note into his pocket, and then turned around and left the betting place. "Hey, the life of rich people is really different from that of small employees like us," the operator muttered in a low voice and shrugged. If it were him, he would lose more than 1 million in one day, which would make him feel distressed. Die. However, I don't seem to have more than 1 million to lose. My boyfriend and I are exhausted every month when we pay the mortgage. We even have to calculate which route is more economical when taking the bus. He's a big-headed guy, a nouveau riche mainlander. The fat supervisor on duty looked at Su-ming's back, cursed in a low voice with a tone that was both jealous and indignant, and then said to the operator seriously, "Joe, don't be fooled, these mainlanders like to be rich and deceive you ignorant little girls. He will definitely not win the prize, and he will not share the prize with you. If you strike up a conversation, I might lose money later and come back to ask for your phone number." "Manager, are you talking bad about the customers behind their back like this?" the operator whispered. "Wow, what's wrong?" the fat manager in his 40s with a bulging belly said with a straight face, but his eyes fell on the operator's towering penis. "Uncle is teaching you how to behave. I'm afraid ignorant girls like you are being deceived." The operator Joe curled his lips and tightened his collar casually, thinking to himself, "Manager, thank you for not lying to me." The duty manager had seen too many gamblers like Su-ming, who would gamble on buying the biggest 4-round lottery and 4-fold lottery with a risk-taking attitude. Of course, the result can be imagined: wealth disappears and people are happy. The probability of 2/1000ths, from the perspective of probability, this kind of small probability event can be considered to definitely not happen, which is not much different from 2/1000ths or 200,000ths. Not only did the duty manager and operator have no confidence, Kui Baijia and Ho Long Tao who were with Su-ming also did so. In the first few games, Ho Long Tao was still a little superstitious about Su-ming when it came to horse racing. Compared with Ho Long Tao, Su-ming is a successful person. Successful people inherently give people a sense of trustworthiness and authority. Moreover, Su-ming owns a horse. When he was at the zoo, Ho Long Tao even rode a horse once, and now all the horses have signed up to participate in the Longines Cup. In Ho Long Tao's opinion, Su-ming must be an expert. But after a few games, it was proved that Su-ming was a good entrepreneur and animal trainer, but his luck in horse racing was really carried away. Seeing Su-ming place a big bet again, Ho Long Tao, a good friend, sighed inwardly, thinking to himself, "Damn, I didn't even spend money to vent my anger when I fell in love. Why are you so prodigal? Is it to show off your financial resources in front of this girl Kui Baiga?" Ho Long Tao glanced at Kui Baijia. "It's not that bad, Lao Su is not that kind of person, and although this Kui Baijia is quite handsome, it seems that he can't catch Lao Su's eyes. Everyone has their own thoughts, and Kui Baiga also has her own thoughts." When Su-ming lost at the airport, she wanted to persuade him to save some money, but she was afraid that he would really not have a good time. Later, I gradually discovered that this mainland tycoon really didn't care about the millions. All he wanted to do was stimulate his heartbeat. What else can I say? It's not my money that I lost. More than 1 million yuan may seem like a lot of money to me, but to others, it may just be a game of mahjong. Su Ming himself still looked calm and composed, sipping a cup of iced cola. He looked very calm. The gate was pulled, and the race began. When all 12 horses ran out of the gate, no one noticed that Su Ming's hand holding the paper cup slightly exerted force and made a small dent in the paper cup. The race ended quickly. Throughout the game, the audience was full of noise and cheers. The winners hoped to win the last hand, and the losers relied on the last hand to make a profit. Su Ming and the other two were a little absent-minded. Su Ming's bet was too mysterious, and there was almost no possibility of winning. There was no suspense, so there was not much interest in watching the game in the stadium. Ho Long Tao was in a daze holding a bag of money, and Kui Baiga was looking down at his phone. "Let's go, old Su, you've been a spendthrift today." Ho Long Tao looked at his watch and said to Kui Baiga, "Miss Kui, recommend a special seafood restaurant. No one can compete with me today. I'll treat you." Money is the courage of a hero, this is absolutely true. After winning more than 2 million, Ho Long Tao's timid little manliness in front of Song Lulu completely disappeared. In front of the little star, he was quite a rich man. "Okay, I've already booked a table in a fishing village by Victoria Harbor. I guarantee it's delicious and not expensive." Kui Baiga smiled playfully, shook her phone, and then said to Su Ming, who was still sitting there in a daze, "Mr. Su, let's go." Su Ming raised his head slightly, took the crumpled lottery ticket, and looked at the two people a little puzzled. "Leaving now, don't you want to receive the prize?" Both of them were stunned.